Can you turn on the overflow button? Turn the overflow button. Oh, it's vacation. Were you on vacation? Is that what it was?
Business trip.
Oh, business trip.
Yeah. I think she was on vacation. Yeah.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
First meeting.
Okay.
Washington State. For the family.
It's good. Yeah, it's stunning. Let me come back. Here you go. Why do I live in Chicago? Every time Colleen and I come back from out here, we love Riverwood. Landing at O'Hare. Oh, why in God's name do we live here?
I'm going to I'm calling the meeting of the Village of Riverwoods Board of Trustees meeting to order. Will you please rise with me and say the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the state
Didn't forget to be here at 6:30. She may be here just when you forgot.
I have no idea. I have no idea. Well, I'm going to move on, Henry, here. Henry's going to do something. Where's our clerk? We need a roll call here. Okay, well, I'll start with a roll call. We're just going to go down the row here.
Here she comes.
Oh, she's coming, parting the ways. Here we are. Yeah. Hey, roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Here.
trustee Eastman,
Here.
trustee Jamerson,
Here.
trustee Smith,
Here.
trustee Hollander,
He's here.
and trustee Dickon is absent tonight. Hey, Mayor Ford.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First order of business is the approval of minutes of the board meeting of June 6th. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Next order of business will be the treasurer and finance report, and we'll start with an approval of the bills, please. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments on the bills? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Smith,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Our treasurer is with us this evening. So in the treasurer and finance report, Hal, would you like to, you can, oh, great. Yeah, share the mic. Perfect, perfect. Thank you.
Mayor, can I make a quick announcement first before you
Yeah.
start?
Yes, sir.
If there's anybody who would like to sit down, there's an overflow room in the lobby, and there's a television screen in there, and you can hear and watch the meeting from there if anybody would like to do that.
Okay, and I'd like to remind those of you who might be live streaming that this is a one-way only. We do not allow participation for our remote participants. And there will be no comments passed along from the chat room because they are not able to be recorded. So having said that, our treasurer, please.
Okay, I'll make it kind of a brief synopsis where actually the turnover of the portfolio is kind of perfectly situated for the spike in interest rates. We have about a third of our a little over 10 million invested that will mature in the next 60 days. The current rates that we hope to get are in the neighborhood of between 4.6 and 5.25 on very, very safe government issues as well as commercial CDs. Danielle and I are watching the portfolio very closely in terms of the weighting to make sure that we don't lean towards the corporates too much in light of the equilibrium that the treasuries are providing at very protected rates. The current yield, if you remember not too long ago, we were talking under 1% in the portfolio. So we really did not have much return on the village's money, but the average weight right now is up to about 3.6%. And if this current the next 60 days of funding comes in where I would expect it, we should eclipse 4.25% to 4.5% on the rest of the portfolio. We basically have started the laddering, keeping it there. The interesting part of this that we have to decide is the future, which of course is not predictable, but the yield curve is actually inverted to what we're used to, whereas the current 6-month rates are 5.25 and the 2 years are down to 4.6. So, you know, although we want to stay short term, I think that between myself and JP Morgan, we're starting to see maybe a top to this rise. And I don't expect that the Fed will back down and lower rates for a while yet, but we, as investors, we may not be able to capitalize on these high rates. So we're going to try to spread out our thing over, maybe we will have some of these in the 2-year range, but we shouldn't go out further than that. It doesn't pay off for us to lock in. So we'll probably stay in the 6-month to 2-year range with this 33% that's going to be maturing in the next 60 days. That's pretty much the status of things. And the yield to maturity what we're hoping for is going to be, the yield to the account in terms of cash flow should probably be close to 300,000 on a 12-month forecast, which again, we haven't had those kind of yields for a while, so can add to the coffers. Thank you.
Are there any questions for our treasurer? Thank you very much. No, I'm sorry. This is visitors wishing to address the board. Is it a separate part of the agenda? Okay. Our finance trustee Clayton, do you have anything for us? Okay, moving forward. Director of Community Services report. Our director isn't with us this evening. Consultants reports. Our attorney, please.
A lot of people heard in the news that Bridge Industrial had withdrawn its petition to annex to Deerfield. We were able to get some confirmation from Lake County that the planning department in Lake County has received a request from Bridge Industrial to set up a meeting and go through whatever process they would need to go in Lake County to begin getting the approvals for their project. As we maybe discussed a couple of meetings back, part of the site is zoned industrial in the Lake County zoning ordinance. Part of the site is zoned general office. There are probably a lot of questions in terms of what can actually be done within the existing zoning, how much of the the project that was proposed by Bridge Industrial could go forward without a major amendment or without a plan development or something like that. We don't have any details at this point. There's been no formal application that I'm aware of. We were told that if a formal application is made, that we would be given notice. So notified or have the ability to go online and find those applications. So far, we're still discussing various options. Obviously, if the project was unacceptable as it was proposed in the village of Deerfield, or it would remain unacceptable just staying in the county. That doesn't really change the project. We're aware of that. So I'll let the board know as we continue to look at what's being proposed. One other thing, last week, the village conducted its annual joint review board meetings with the taxing districts for the 2 TIF districts, and just gave a couple of the representatives from those districts an update on what we'd been doing in each of the TIF districts. Just for the board's knowledge, in TIF number 1, all of the monies that the village advanced over the past number of years to acquire the property, sell it to QSmart, sell it to Thornton's, have it developed. All of those monies essentially have been repaid from the proceeds of the sale to Thornton's. And at this point, there's a positive balance of some increment in TIF fund number 1. TIF fund number 2 is in a slight deficit because it's been paying for legal and consulting and other expenses without any real growth in increment to date. But the joint review board meeting lasted about an hour and nothing really major to report other than we held it and everybody got answers to their questions at the meeting. That's it.
Trustees have any questions for our village attorney? Okay, engineers report, please.
Good evening. One item I'll be discussing tonight is the current status of the stormwater study for the village. As you know, that we started that tail end of last year. We started with a survey that we posted on the website for all residents to submit to help gather information of just visual stormwater issues across the village. We received over 300 surveys, which is actually a pretty good percentage. So now that window is closed. We've taken in all that data. We're starting to put in on the map exactly where those surveys came in from and what issues they had. And what we're doing now is taking an overall view of all the concerns and all the stormwater waterways. So you have your creeks and obviously the 2 main watersheds going to the Des Plaines and the West Fork. And now we're going to analyze what improvements we can do to help do long-term improvements in the village as a whole to help with the overall stormwater for the village. So right now we're doing that analysis and we're hoping that we can come back with a draft by the end of the summer. So probably sometime August to discuss. So then we have the study implemented in time for the next DCEO grant, which is what the purpose and drive for this study was for.
You're talking and her talking. Inaudible.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Excuse me. Can you hear me now? Okay, we need to all remember to speak directly into the microphone then. Okay. Little too much. Okay. All right, village engineer, would you like to go on with the water infrastructure report, please?
Sure. So now we submitted and our LMO earlier this year as the Lake Michigan operations as our allocation as being part of Lake Michigan water. That's been approved. So now we can go ahead and take that analysis and put it into the final step of the model for the overall village capacity for the water system we have to see how much our system can hold and how much we can distribute out. And so now that we got the information, we should have the analysis done by the end of July for the board to take a look at as part of the infrastructure analysis.
Do any of the trustees have questions for our village engineer? Okay, thank you. Village ecologist report.
I have nothing to report tonight.
Okay, plan commission report. Chairman Brightcoff, thank you.
Good evening. The Planning Commission will meet on July the 6th. We'll continue our discussion on short-term rentals. And that is all I have. Any questions? So, July 6th meeting, we'll discuss short-term rental.
Okay, thank you. Any trustees have any questions or comments for, okay. ZBA report, please.
That's so exciting. Nothing to report. However, the more I think about this, the more that I think that people who are developing in our village are respecting our zoning laws, and I really appreciate that.
Are there any questions for Chairman Greditor? Okay, moving on. Police report, please.
The police activity since the last meeting is in the packets, and that's all I have.
Okay, there any questions for our chief? All right, a fire district report. We have Chief Kruger with us this evening.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. Everybody's, I'm sure, is aware of the severe drought we're having. So everything is dry. Just be cognizant of grilling. You never know, a little tiny charcoal briquette or something gets in the mulch under your deck. It'll light up pretty quick. So that, fire pits. And we had the fireworks season coming up. We always tell people leave it to the professionals, but we know sometimes people buy illegal fireworks. We don't condone it, but just be very, very careful because everything is super, super dry out there, and it'll go up pretty quick. So full safety, we try to stress, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Are
Thank
there any
you.
questions for our chief from the trustees?
Be going.
Trustee Hollander, please.
Chief, about 7 months ago, we talked about having these emergency boxes, which have a keyed by the fire department for individuals that are living by themselves.
Correct.
We were going to talk about some kind of program for those people in Riverwoods who are maybe not aware of the program or would like more information or be subsidized. I know it costs a couple $100 to do this, but I know it's the service that you provide. Do we have any update on that?
I believe our battalion chief reached out to somebody in the village. I'm not sure, but if not, we will. It's on our district website. But what is the easiest way for us to disseminate that information or to get it?
I believe there was an article in the Village Voice, and I believe our electronic newsletter also had some information on it recently. The lock boxes would be purchased by the resident, and the fire district will install them at no cost.
Correct.
Okay, are there any other
Good.
questions
Thank
for our
you.
chief?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your service. Information items and comments from the president. I just want to update the board that we are having our second 90-day status report on utility billing, and everything is going extraordinarily well as far as we can tell. Many of the outstanding bills have been paid, and we're catching up with new residents that had not received a bill. So our records are getting much, much better, but our status report is coming up this Friday. And then our recruiting effort is moving strongly ahead for the two positions, Director of Finance and Director of Community Services. So we're moving ahead very quickly and strongly on those. We hope to have more information for you at our next meeting. At this point, unless the trustees have any questions for me on either of those items. Okay, next item on our agenda is visitors wishing to address the board. We're going to begin with a presentation from Lexington. And following that, we will have a presentation, I believe, from an attorney representing some residents. And I think we might have another presentation before we get to individual residents wishing to address the board. Please note that when it becomes individual residents addressing the board, we will be sticking to the 3-minute time limit. There are lots of you, and 3 minutes is really, it's posted on the wall in the board, and we've been in the boardroom here, and we have followed that in our special meeting on Lexington, and we will continue to follow that. So, shall we begin?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hal Frank. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Meltzer, Bertil and Stell. I represent Lexington Homes. As the mayor said, we'd like to take a few moments to make a very short presentation to respond to some of the comments that were made by all of you at the last meeting, some of the questions that you asked. So we do have a very short PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to start by turning the floor over to the project civil engineer, Todd Schaefer.
Good evening. Introduction, Todd Schaefer, principal with Hager Engineering, 100 East State Parkway, Schaumburg, Illinois. The purpose of this presentation tonight is to address some of the comments we received from the village board, as well as some staff recommendations between the last meeting and today, just to have a visual in case the board wants to discuss those topics or the audience needs to discuss them. The first item was a suggestion by the village planner, Teska, which is to realign the access entry road to have the entry road be more of a feature where it ends into the rain garden bioswale. What this does is it creates we still maintain our two-way entry with 25-foot back-to-back and 24 face-to-face. And then that goes into a one-way counterclockwise circulation, which would be serving the units as well as the residents or guests leaving back out to the access road. This also modifies slightly the sidewalk internal configurations and makes it more of a visually appealing entry feature. So Lexington is happy to move forward with this plan. That is the direction that we are given from the board and also the village consultants, or we're happy to revert back to the previous one. On the next slide, there was some commentary regarding the adequacy of the roadway width for parking on one side. And so we just wanted to create a slide that showed what's being proposed. And what's being proposed is at this time 30 feet back to back. When we were going through this process, the roadway width was discussed, I want to say ad nauseum, where roadway widths were wider. And then working with the village staff, we wanted to come into a more narrower roadway width to reduce the pavement throughout the subdivision. And what we have on our main entry road is dictated by the Deerfield Road improvements, where there's 3 lanes of traffic. Those 3 lanes of traffic are dictated by the highway standards, which are 11-foot lanes, edge to edge. So that would be 33 feet, back to back 36 feet. We're required to have turn lanes, if you go back, it's like we're required to have turn lanes and storage, which is one of the reasons why our access drive is where it's located, further inward into the site. Once you pass that dash line and go to the west, what we have is a 30-foot back-to-back, which is 29-foot face-to-face. A typical minimum is 7 foot for on-street parking, and that's controlled by how far does somebody park away from the curb. If they park close to it, further away from it, everybody's different. But typically, parking for a roadway is 7 to 8 feet. And then you have your drive lanes, your minimum is 10 feet. So we're within that range for there. And then it comes down to just comfort. We have a half a foot between the back curb and the right of way line where we can widen the road easily a foot. Or if the village wants more comfort for the residents and guests, we can widen the road another foot or 2. It will have a minor impact on the proposed stormwater management, but we can proceed with whatever roadway width the village would like us to go from a comfort level perspective. I'll turn it over to Sharon, our landscape architect, but the next slides there's a lot of discussions about the fencing along the north property line, so we wanted to prepare a graphic just to illustrate that, and then we can massage it from there once you guys see the graphics.
Good evening, Sharon Dixon, owner of Dixon Design Studio. I'm the landscape architect on the project. The slide before you tonight is in response to the continued discussion between the village and the neighbors and ourselves, Lexington Homes, in terms of fencing along the north property line. What we are proposing tonight is to install a fence along the north property line in the general location that is depicted on the slide in the dashed line with arrows. So we would propose the fence along the north line of the north detention. It would then travel south along the existing woodland area and then continue east, south of the existing woodland area, north of our proposed townhomes. This fence would look like, next slide, please. A 3-rail fence, approximately around 4 feet tall, maybe 4'6" to the top of the post. 3 rails. Next slide, please. Most likely in a wood material. And these depictions are inspiration images on what that fence would look like. So it does create a barrier between our site and neighbors to the north, encouraging people not to traverse through that woodland, but also creating a naturalistic aesthetic between separation between us and our neighbors that still kind of is cohesive to the woodland. With that, that was our minimal slide presentation for tonight.
Thank you, Sharon. One last minute addition to our presentation is Natalie Viscuso, who is with the architectural firm BSB Design, and her colleague Jeff Mulcrone have been in contact with a architectural consultant for the village, and she would like to present some changes to the building elevations that have occurred as a result of those discussions with Mr. Hammer. I don't know if we can pull them up on the screen. Can we pull them up on the screen? Oh, there we go. We can pull them up on the screen. I also have handouts if you'd like to see them in a printed version. Natalie?
Thank you, Hal. Thank you, board members and mayor. I'm Natalie Viscuso with BSB Design.
Excuse me 1 minute. We just want to note we now have a full board. Thank you.
My name is Natalie Viscuso and I'm with the architecture firm BSB Design. Since the last village board meeting, we have received a review of the proposed elevation design by an architectural consultant, Mr. Robert Hammer. Mr. Hammer was very complimentary of the original elevations design, and we have had conversations with him on how to best arrive at a design that he would recommend as suitable to the character of Riverwoods. Our goal was to find the balance between introducing a warmer color palette blended with details of a traditional Riverwoods home, while still aiming to be a tad modern to balance the retail streetscape environment. Could you go to the next slide, please? Colors are a little distorted here, but we will certainly provide physical material samples as needed. So the second slide shows the proposed character elevation. The changes include introducing a warmer color palette of earth tone brick and siding in lieu of the white and gray brick that was previously shown. This is an artistic rendering, and we are of the same mind as Mr. Hammer that physical samples should be reviewed prior to construction. Aside from material adjustments, several architectural changes have been incorporated to give the elevations a more residential feel. We have introduced varied window sizes across the facade, which will give each unit its unique presence. The units shown include a cantilevered bay with a large triple window. And then the second unit from the left includes a double window, which is different than what we had previously shown. The third unit from the left, the middle unit, is showing a 2-foot, 3-foot, 2-foot combination window, which again gives each unit its unique identity and minimizes monotony across the facade. We have introduced a gable porch roof element to a couple of the units to break up the facade at the pedestrian level. This, in combination with the existing metal roof porches, add another level of detail and variation to the elevations. And the windows above the gable roof also change with the gable because of the height of that gable roof. We have also revisited the building roof line to create a rhythm of gables and shed roof with dormer details that move your eye across the facade. And again, add that level of differentiation between each unit. We feel that these changes to the elevation give the design more of a residential character that Riverwoods and the consulting architect desire. And of course, we will work with staff and consultants to address any remaining concerns. Thank you.
Natalie. One last comment. That concludes our presentation for this evening. I do want to note, though, that at the last village board meeting, a question was asked about fire protection district review of the plans. The plans have been submitted, but we have not received feedback from the fire protection district yet. So we're assuming that could occur after tonight and before the next meeting. Thank you. That concludes our presentation.
Unless the board members have any specific questions at this point, we can move on and hear from the residence attorney. Okay, we'll take up any questions later on in the agenda. Okay, thank you. If you could identify yourself and
Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay, good evening, board members. My name is Brian Armstrong. I'm an attorney for a number of homeowners in the Meadow Lake subdivision who object to this development. So I have a few comments I'd like to make. As you probably all know, the village's comprehensive plan is the guide map for you all in deciding whether a development is right through Riverwoods, whether it fits in Riverwoods, whether it's consistent with Riverwoods goals. And courts consider a comprehensive plan and following a comprehensive plan to be a significant factor in determining whether a zoning decision is proper. It's in fact one of the cell factors, which are the factors the courts examine to determine whether or not the decision is proper. And here, the very first paragraph of your comprehensive plan says, and this is a quote, Riverwoods has a rich history of community planning to respect and preserve the distinctive woodland/woodland environment and low density character of the community. And the comprehensive plan also lays out the two core values of the plan for the village. Those two core values are privacy and independence of living on larger lots in a low density community. And the two, constant presence of the woodland environment. Those are direct quotes from the comprehensive plan that guides your decisions here. Does the project that's been proposed comply with these two core goals or further these two core goals of the comprehensive plan? Unfortunately, no, it doesn't. In fact, it does the opposite of those two core goals. We'll talk about why. In this property, multi-family housing is not permitted. That's why before you is both a text amendment and a rezoning. Regarding the text amendment, the applicant is asking you to amend section 9483 to remove minimum lot size for multi-family housing. Their proposal in the text amendment has no minimum lot size. Now, if this plan is approved with the approximately 7,000 foot lot size that they're proposing in their plan, that's the new standard. That's not 7,000 foot lots and 54 dwelling units is not independent living on larger lots in low density communities. But that's the new floor that will be set. That's the new standard that will be set if this project is approved as proposed. What happens when the next developer comes along and wants to do multifamily housing? They ask for 5,000 square feet per lot, 3,000 square feet per lot. Nobody knows, but 7,000 square feet per lot is the new precedent you'll be setting. They're also asking for rezoning, as you know, from the open R1 to the 1R district for this property. As I'm sure most of you know, if you've heard, currently the only area in the village that has the 1R zoning district is the Meadow Lake subdivision north of the property. Now, one thing that's interesting is this property is actually not eligible for 1R zoning under your code. Even with the text amendment and the rezoning you're asking for, to rezone 1R would directly violate your village code. And specifically 94A-1 says, and quote, the zoning district created by this article, that's the R1 district, is intended and shall apply and be applicable only to contiguous lands of 50 acres or more. Everybody knows this parcel is about 9 or 10 acres. So this parcel is not eligible to be zoned 1R, even with the text amendment that they're requesting. They haven't asked for a text amendment 94A1. They only asked for a text amendment to reduce the lot size for the individual building envelopes that they propose to build on. Now, some of you know the history. In 1986, the code was amended to allow special uses for multifamily developments in the 1R district. And that was the first. Curiously, the 50-acre minimum was not amended when that section of the code was amended to allow multifamily in the first place. So the only place where multifamily is allowed under your code is in 1R as a special use, which can only, and 1R can only be granted in a tract of land of 50 acres or more, which this parcel is not. So the parcel is still eligible for 1R district. Courts consider something called the LaSalle factors when they evaluate whether rezoning is proper. And there are 8 factors. Mr. Hubbard can advise you about them. I'm not going to go through all of them in the interest of time. Nobody wants to do that, but I do want to talk about a couple of them. One of the important ones is the extent to which property values are diminished by the particular zoning restrictions that's in place. There was no evidence at all presented to the Planning Commission that the current zoning of the property diminishes the value of the property. I'm sure Lexington Homes has their opinion about that, but they didn't present any evidence of it. There's also been no evidence of inability to sell or develop the property with its current zoning. Again, Lexington Homes has their opinion about that, but their opinions aren't evidence. There's no evidence of that. On the other hand, this proposed development this close to Meadow Lake is certainly raises a question about how much of a decrease in property values it will cause to the Meadow Lakes and the property owners. In fact, I know Trustee Eastman actually raised this issue at the last meeting. He expressed this concern. And again, there's no evidence from the applicant that there won't be harm to the values of the Meadow Lake subdivision. Another one of those factors is relative gain to the public as compared to the hardship imposed on the individual property owner. Again, no evidence at the Planning Commission on this factor. Again, Lexington has its opinions, but that's not evidence. There wasn't evidence presented to the Planning Commission. And just one more I'm going to talk about again. As I mentioned, the comprehensive plan. That's one of the factors, one of the most important factors. Here, as I said, the comprehensive plan is clear as to what the goals are for developing the village. The applicant is also asked for a special use for this multifamily. So let's talk about some of the specifics of the proposed use. These are comments that you've heard before. Some of you have raised them yourselves. Some of them were raised by the plan commissioners, some of them were raised by the public. But we can talk about them quickly. Commissioner Bradington, I apologize if I mispronounce anyone's name. I'm sure it might happen, so please forgive me. One of her big concerns obviously was the people traversing into the Meadow Lake subdivision from the development. Now, we saw the picture of that support rail fence that they proposed to put up. I'm 54 years old. I'm not in the shape. I can get over that fence. Okay, so that's not going to do anything. That's not going to stop anybody. We also saw some pictures of, I guess, revised design plans for the building, architectural plans. Another comment that Commissioner Bradington made was how unattractive buildings were, that they looked like derelicts. And again, that was not the only person who made those comments. Other people made those comments. But tonight doesn't help that, doesn't make it any better. Another goal is the village has stated it wants to increase affordable housing. That's the stated goal of the village. This development is proposed will actually decrease the percentage of affordable housing in the village because they propose only 3 affordable units and 51 I'll call typical units. That's actually going to decrease the percentage of affordable units. Commissioner Brian expressed the concern that a lot of other people are still concerned was the density. We're putting 54 dwelling units, or proposing to put 54 dwelling units on this site, 9-acre site. But after you take away the stormwater and the streets, is really, I think, about 4 acres or 5 acres of these 10 buildings. Commissioner Pratt correctly pointed out that this will set a precedent for future developments. And again, a specific comment she made was that the standards in Riverwoods are high and that this development doesn't meet those standards. It's not good enough. Trustee Jamerson made a comment during the meeting about the parking. That the number of parking spaces for visitors is insufficient. Again, we saw a slight revision to the plan tonight, and there was some comments about parking. But what we didn't hear was that there's additional parking spaces added for visitors. Trustee Smith also made a comment about insufficient parking. That has nothing to do with what we saw tonight. Now let's talk about the setback. The setback is 50 feet, and the applicant acknowledges that they will be dedicating 25 feet to expand to widen Deerfield Road. That means their actual setback, as they stand here today, they know is really only 25 feet. That doesn't comply with the code. There's no request for variation for that. That can't be approved without a request for variation. Let's talk about the height of the buildings. The applicant has suggested that their building complies with the zoning code, your buildings comply because their height, the mean height is 35 feet. However, we also acknowledge that they have to raise the grade by 2 feet because of the floodplain. As a result, I think they've acknowledged, at least trustees or planning commissioners have acknowledged that the roofs of these buildings will actually be taller than the roof of the existing Federal Life building. We still don't have information from the Fire Protection District about what they think about the emergency access in that oval that we've talked about, or that the applicant has proposed. I know that they've submitted a traffic study with auto turn data from their traffic consultant, whose opinion really matters is the Fire Protection District. And we haven't heard from them. And I found it interesting, they acknowledged that trucks have to go over the curbs so that they're going to build the curbs stronger so that they can withstand the trucks going over the curbs. The solution to that is to design the project so that trucks can go around without going over the curbs. A few other things, there was comments about the number of students that are going to be added. You know, I don't know where that report came from. We don't look at, there wasn't any information about who commissioned the report, who was for, what data the report was relying on. But downsizing retirees or people who want to move out of the bigger house and into a smaller house, I don't think many of those are asking for 3-bedroom places. So I think it's likely that you're going to see more people, more young people, people in the schools than is projected by the applicant. There are a number of other concerns that are just questions that you should be asking and you should be demanding answers to that I don't think you have answers to. Light pollution onto Meadow Lake subdivision from these buildings that are now taller than the existing Federal Life building. Privacy, for the same reason, balconies overlooking the wood area of this subdivision. The lake in Meadow Lake. There are a lot of comments about people concerned about people accessing the lake and the danger of the lake for drownings. Again, that's split rail fence. I mean, we're talking about the risk. You have a 7-year-old kid get through that split rail fence as fast as a rabbit. That's not going to do anything to help safety. So I'll summarize. You've been very patient with me, and I appreciate it. Problems that have been identified by the trustees and plan commissioners and the public have been addressed, and I think are fatal to the project. That's besides the project, this property not being eligible for this district. So again, coming back to the start, which is the comprehensive plan, you all are the stewards of that comprehensive plan. The responsibility falls on you all to make sure that developments honor and respect that comprehensive plan, which is the stated goal, which contains stated goals for the village for development. And again, it's a quote: to respect and preserve the distinctive woodland living environment and low-density character of the community. This was 2 core values: privacy and independence of living on larger lots in a low-density community, and constant presence of the woodland environment. I think it's pretty safe to say that this plan does not achieve either of those goals. So, on behalf of my clients, we ask that you to honor the request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I believe we have another attorney that wishes to address the group.
Mr. Frankie, you can use mine. You can use mine.
Okay, let's try it without. Can you? Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. If we do it without, it does not get to the recording. That
Katie,
microphone is better.
Katie,
Okay.
Katie, last time the microphone, when we had problems with the microphone, you got new batteries. Could we try that?
Okay. Excuse. David. No, in what I said at the beginning was there would be a Lexington presentation and then there was a presentation by your residence attorney. We were expecting another attorney for Federal Life to be here. And that's Mr. Frankie, I believe, is going to explain that. He's not going to explain that.
Oh, you got to turn it on.
Okay,
There's a button.
is the attorney for Federal Life present, please?
I know the attorney for Federal Life is coming, but he's coming from a 1-year-old birthday party, so he might be late. I've only
Okay,
Mayor, I only stood up for one point of order. I would ask Mr. Armstrong, the attorney that just addressed you, to formally identify who his clients are. And if he cannot do that tonight, he told me it's 6 to 8 people. Then I would ask him to put it in writing. I think everybody's entitled to know exactly who are his clients.
counsel? Yes, okay. We can do that. Well, wait, time out.
Use that one.
It's.
Clients that are represented tonight include William Louth, his wife Kathy Louth, Mike Lyons, David Fuller. There may be other people who I can find their names to Mr. Frankie, to Mr. Kuvard tomorrow and later in the week. But those are the people that definitely are representing.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, at this point, we will have residents addressing the board. You will be timed, and it's 3 minutes per person. Is there anybody wishing to address the board? Please step forward.
Can you pick up the lavalier right here with me?
Yeah, that seems to be working better.
Yes, people can hear. Okay. Can I? If you don't move that over there.
I don't know. Because we've got a big table.
Well, this is what's gonna happen. Yeah, but that's not gonna work for everybody.
Yeah.
You can just take it like.
Okay,
Can we just hold on just a second?
can we take a 2 minute, 3 minute recess here till we get the audio set up so everybody can hear?
There's gonna be way too many people to climb over. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Just bear with me.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, we'll take a little time out here.
I'm into it. Testing 1, 2, 3. Please come here. The mayor is out. Where's the mayor? Oh, she's getting here. Yeah, we're done.
Right. We'll end our recess and we're at visitors wishing to address the board. Sir, would you state your name, please?
Neil Sinha. So overall, the board members, the mayor need to represent the concern and be the moral compass for the village of Riverwoods. That's important.
You're taking up his 3 minutes.
So there are 3 players that we have tonight. We can be all attorney, we can be all these great things, but there are 3 players involved tonight. Number 1 player is Lexington Home. So Lexington Home is going to be very lucrative and they're going to do very well here. That's known. And we're here to represent the people who are opposing it. Village, in terms of the financing, Village of Riverwoods is very highly capitalized and very cash rich.
It's not true.
2 mayors ago, Mr. Mayor Kaplan had told me this city has $20 million. Today, I would guesstimate and say that you have more than $30 million.
No, correction there.
You're absolutely.
Okay, but
We paid for the building, so.
okay, that's
Go ahead.
cool. But what I'm saying is you're highly capitalized. You do not need this capital from Lexington in terms of the taxes and all that goes along with it. Majority of the people here have moved here probably for these 3 reasons. There's nature, forest preserve, good school district, and the third and the most important reason is low population density. So going back in time, I'm actually a builder, I'm an engineer and all these things, and I've worked with Bruce. So I can tell you that you're required to have close to 1 acre for one house. And that is part of the reason my family, including my wife and kids, we moved to this region, low population density. There's a reason why everyone is moving here because of that. And if we approve this, it is problematic, which people don't see 10 years from now. You will be a mayor for 1 or 2 years and you'll move on. Everyone moves on. We are the residents. The problem is if this gets approved, the future will get approved for something else. We don't need to approve this. This is a highly capitalized place. There are other reasons where they have Lexington Home has provided affordable home. That sounds great. The news and whatever. The bottom line is, would you expect an affordable home in, say, a place like Bel Air, California? No, why wouldn't you? Because it has a different demographics. To create an affordable home, you're changing the demographics and the people structure of the city. You are basically, by creating this new buildings, and I do building design, I would say it is not beneficial for the people of Riverwoods. You are the moral compass. You make the decision for Riverwoods. Thank you.
Those of you speaking, if you look over by my laptop, you'll be able to see the clock.
My name is Avinash Vaidya. I'm a resident of Riverwoods for 27 years, and I'm here to represent myself and my family. I just want to say that my previous speaker did a great job explaining a lot of things. I'll put that in more common sense. There are 3 major problems that we have in our neighborhood. And neighborhood includes not just Meadow Lakes, but also Riverwoods in general. One is traffic, the other is flooding, and the last one is crime and parking issues. All of these problems have a simple proportionality, which is they are directly proportional to the number of people that you're adding to this population. The total number of homes in Meadow Lakes is just about 50. You're adding as many new homes in this little parcel of land. That's going to be adding too many people, and that's going to change the character of the Riverwoods. As the previous speaker said, I moved here 27 years ago because I love the neighborhood. I like nature. Every single house in Meadow Lakes as well as Riverwoods is different. And that diversity is very unique to Riverwoods. You saw the pictures today from Lexington Homes. What do they look like? They look to me like a cookie cutter design, optimized with fake. And I can be honest in saying that fake, because just to please the residents of Riverwoods, they added a few wooden touches to it. That does not change the character of a cookie cutter design. And I think that's the last thing we need. There has not been a detailed study. All you have to do is come at rush hour in the morning and try to make a left turn from Meadow Lakes onto Deerfield Road. And you would, at the same time, when you come in the evening, you would find that the traffic backs up from the traffic light on Milwaukee Avenue on Deerfield Road and goes all the way on the other side of the river. That's a lot of cars. You're just adding 50 new families to that congestion at the worst possible spot. I know that you're going to do all the studies. I'm just saying common sense should dictate that this is not the time to add a lot of extra people and believe in some study. I'm sure that you can have a very scientific study. Scientific studies also show and prove that a fly cannot really fly, but it does. So even though I'm an engineer, I take some of these studies with a bit of skepticism because common sense rules I guess my time is up.
No, 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 no.
All right.
No.
So
6 seconds.
last comment I want to make is I would really like Riverwoods to stay the way it is, a community we all love. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Can I say one thing?
My name is Marcel.
Excuse me one moment.
Oh, I
Excuse
was
me
just
one
going to
moment.
ask if everybody could spell their names for the record, because
Marcelle. My last name is Lecomte, L-E, capital C-O-M-P-T-E. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Completely irrelevant to what I'm standing up for. I'm an attorney, and I find it a little disconcerting that the Lexington attorney asked for the announcement of who the clients were, because I understand it's your job, but this is our home. This is our home, and the board is supposed to represent all of us. And I will be happy to sign on as a client. It can't be lost on the decision-making process of this, that this Lexington complex is located directly across the street from what heard is called Old Riverwoods or South Riverwoods. And with all due respect to the architect, Common Riverwood homes in Old Riverwoods have 2.5 acres at least each. I spent 3 years looking for a home moving from Chicago. I've been here just over 2 years. In the time frame that I moved here with my husband, 4 other homes just on my block, on my street. Also, new people have come in. And I've found that each of them, in talking with them, came for the same reasons I did. I loved living in the city, had a home for 17 years, but year after year, the neighborhood changed as condos were built. And first it was one condo, and then it was another, and then it was another. And density matters. And I spent 3 years looking, because at this age, I had the time and the money that I wanted to dedicate to the Woodlands. And Riverwoods is where I ended up. I looked at Palos Park, I looked everywhere. And you know, the book that you hand out or used to hand out, most of us, the key attraction of Riverwoods has been its sense of space, its wooded character, and the opportunity to live in harmony with nature.
You're using up your time.
I'm sorry?
They're using up your time.
That's okay. They're supporting it, what I'm saying, and I'm hoping that you're hearing them. Those of us who chose to move here, and what the other gentleman already said, dedicate our time. I see my neighbors out there. We dedicate our time. We have Steve come over and tell us which plant to plant, which plant to pull. We spend our time, our money. We are already here. We have invested our lives in this neighborhood, and you can't think, I don't know what it's in it for Riverwoods. I understand and have no ill thoughts of the profit that Lexington can make, but I know that there's not an incentive for those of us who live in Old Riverwoods. As it is, we worry every time a fawn crosses the street because
Thank
of
you very
the
much.
people coming in.
Thank you
Listen
very
to your
much.
constituents.
My name is Jeff. No?
Okay.
Hey, you got my letter?
Yeah.
I live at 8 Kingswood. I've been a resident of Riverwoods for 41 years. I wrote a letter to Mayor Ford and the trustees, and I'm just going to simply read it. Dear Mayor Ford and trustees, please vote no on Lexington Homes proposal to develop the Federal Life property at 3750 Deerfield Road as a dense townhouse complex. This plan would convert what was for many years a serene office building, which generated little traffic and was closed after work hours and on weekends, into a dense, unattractive, massive housing project in the bucolic community. The Woodlands Wildlife, seclusion, and privacy that we all cherish will be permanently lost. Meadow Lake and residential properties on Deerfield Road close to the site would be most immediately affected by this proposed development. And those households overwhelmingly oppose this plan. But ultimately, all of us Riverwood citizens will also be affected by the increased traffic and congestion on Deerfield Road, reduced property values, and the permanent alteration to the nature of our community. Residents throughout Riverwoods are concerned that some plan commissioners and trustees have voiced their view that the Lexington plan is a prototype to replicate at other sites throughout the village. If the precedent is set, it would become more difficult for other neighbors to successfully fight off a dense, unattractive townhouse project like this, should a developer assemble property near them. This proposal can only succeed if you, our village trustees, vote to change the zoning from commercial offices or research to multiple family housing. We urge you to stop this poorly designed, poorly planned mistake from happening. It would permanently pervert what makes our rustic village what it is and has been for many decades. Once this proposal is approved, there will be no way to undo the damage. Please vote no on the Lexington plan and seek a better use for this site.
Good evening, Randy Merrill, Riverwoods Preservation Council. I want to read you a mission statement. It's actually in a brochure that the village provides for buying a home in Riverwoods. It says Riverwoods is a woodland preservation community privately stewarded by nearly 1,400 individual landowners. We take that responsibility seriously and are committed to protecting our shared natural resource. Our website reads, the Village of Riverwoods was born out of an idea by Ryerson to offer an experience of living in a unique woodland settings. The woodlands in the village remain a treasured community asset, requiring their preservation and stewardship. These are our objectives. These are your objectives. So our village ecology map shows that the federal life property is on wetland floodplain forest. We should use this opportunity to consider restoration and acknowledge the negative environmental impact the current Lexington project will have to our community. It is too dense, it is too tall, it is too bright, and it has no place on this parcel of land. So ask yourselves, are you fulfilling the mission statement by allowing this development to be approved? Thank you.
Good evening, happy Tuesday. I'm right here. All right. I'm Kruti Jain. That's K-R. All right then. And this is?
Julie Bavaro.
Perfect. In the 1950s, there were only about 40 families in what is now known as Riverwoods. Those residents were impressed with its natural beauty and became concerned about the effects of increasing development. In the face of increasing real estate development, and after some residents had engaged in litigation to forestall development, the RRA, Riverwoods Residents Association, was chartered in 1955 to give residents a greater voice in the decision-making. As co-president and secretary of the Riverwoods Residents Association, and on behalf of our resident members, we strongly oppose this development as it goes against the foundational values of our charming community. And I consider you stewards of this community, and I hope that you'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board on this topic? Yes, Mary.
Mary Oler, 14 Chicory Lane. I noticed that
For different speakers, you can or can't hear them according to how.
Closer, Mary. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure many of you are aware. Okay. As I'm sure many of you are aware because you've seen literature about it, since early May, residents have renewed a petition drive in opposition to the Lexington project. And this morning, I believe that we filed about 1,200 signatures. Because of some confusion with online and written versions, we're going to guesstimate that about, and we didn't have time, they were coming in throughout the day, right up through dinner time. We're going to guesstimate that about 1,000, we probably have 1,000 signatures from residents. And I think that's really important for all of you to know. And included in these, first of all, are the signatures of all residents who are immediately adjoin the Fed Life property. All residents on the back in Meadow Lake, on the west side on Deerfield Road, oppose it in writing, and the owner of Elevate Nursing Home across Deerfield Road also opposes it. With several concerns, including that there is inadequate parking and he would expect that his property would be imposed on at holidays and other times when there would be high use there. I wish that you could have heard all the conversations that we heard while gathering those signatures, but I think you've gotten a good sense an excellent sense tonight of why people moved here, what they treasure about this community. It is not it has not been mean-spirited or elitist. I think there is sympathy for housing that is accessible for seniors and for people who might find huge lots difficult to manage, but still want this lifestyle. And I think it is not rigid and open to different models, but a strong feeling that this is not the one. I also want to point out that when we filed the petitions, they were filed under section 11-13-14 of the Illinois Municipal Code, which requires a 2/3 vote
Mary,
to approve.
can you wrap up? Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the board? Okay, come on up.
It's working. How's that? Which way?
Towards your mom.
Am I okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Renee Wishner. I live at 10 Julie Lane. I'm on the other side. I have a board member here who is a neighbor. I moved to Riverwoods 18 years ago from Deerfield. We wanted change. And 5 minutes away, we got change. I never know when there's going to be deer grazing in my backyard, or yesterday a woodpecker, which we really don't want. The blue jays, the chipmunks, they live in underneath our house. We have everybody. And we cannot remove a wetland. Most of the houses down Clendenin, Julie Lane, down Duffy have wetlands. I have a house right across the street from me. The entire front of the house mostly is wetland. And the builder plowed and rooted those wetlands, and they were fined $50,000 unless they replaced it all with a certain kind of plant. There's a magnificent home down Duffy Road that's all wetlands in front. and they live with it. We shelter all the wildlife, the wetlands, and all nature. We shelter them. They're fed off of nature, and it's being destroyed. And I don't know why, if we can't remove one little parcel of wetland, you're letting them remove wetland and destroy the area where all the wildlife live there. We get these newsletters from Riverwoods, and most of it's about nature. And that's what Riverwoods represents, nature and all the wildlife. And it's a total disregard for all of these animals, because Lexington Homes, which has never been known to be of very, very high value, are coming in to find,
excuse me,
and build as much
Excuse me.
profit as they want. They're not thinking about the wildlife. And you're supposed to represent the wildlife. So I don't understand that. And the wetlands. How can you respond to that? I don't think you can. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll put this down here. Hi, Christy Sherman. Yes, thank you. So, I've been looking at moving into Riverwoods probably for 15 or 20 years. We moved here 3 years ago and we overpaid for our house. I will tell you that. And we also didn't expect to put in as much money as we did in fixing our house up, even though we didn't think it needed to be fixed up. However, our house, if I look across our lake, I will be staring, my husband and I and our other homes will be staring directly at townhomes. So I'm going to start out by saying, this is, if you guys move forward with it, you've called this a flagship. This would be your flagship. Months ago, this could be a flagship project. There is so much wrong with it. To me, it's an embarrassment. The project's an embarrassment. The other thing is, I feel like there is, and I'm going to talk about even the woodlands. I feel almost like it was very disrespectful the way even the developer and the landscaping, the way they addressed the buffer between Meadow Lake and the development. I've talked to different people with tree companies, very well-known tree companies, where they did a walkthrough and they looked at it. And they actually said to me, even though we originally thought it would be great to leave the buffer, they said, oh, you're going to have a hard time putting the trees you're wanting to put there because it's a floodplain. There's a lot of walnut trees there. You can't grow a lot of stuff. You're going to have a building on this side. You're going to have the buffer on this side. You're going to have light issues. So my question is, and then I look at this plan, and if you look at all the other trees, they're like this big. And if you look at the trees on the design, there's like 3 trees that's supposed to be our buffer that are a quarter of the size of the other trees on the property. So I just feel like such little amount of attention is really being paid to what is core, to Riverwoods. Again, we're talking about our nature and everything. We're talking about privacy. And my last comment is, you don't ever hear people from Northbrook or Deerfield or Highland Park or anything talking like the people who live in Riverwoods. I don't ever hear people talking about why they moved to their communities. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board?
Hi, Board. My name is Bob Pevar. We've lived in Riverwoods like you all live in Riverwoods for almost 40 years. My wife doesn't want me to do this thing. This is not my thing. But I saw when I came here, we had 2 acres and we had horses. I saw a golf course go down. I saw Thorngate go up, where they rechanged it to a half an acre. I'm not fighting change. We live in a beautiful little village here. We had a small little hall here. We tore down some trees to build a bridge that hasn't been used too much. We've done a lot of changes. This is a unique village. And we all love it because we all live here together. But putting up this 50 families in a small space would be these are not small apartments, these are large apartments. This would be a disaster and we would spoil this beautiful little village of ours. And I feel that this would ruin our village and you would not have the feeling of this beautiful little place that we live in. We all live here together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Judy Haley. Well, whenever I see these pictures that Lexington puts out, they're sterile. It looks like a 5th grader, did it with Lego blocks. Why aren't there pictures that show the roads with cars on it? How does that little strip of empty land look when there's SUVs, pickup trucks, just the ordinary trucks and cars that we all live in? What does it look like then? They've got lots of money for lots of artists. Why didn't they show a realistic representation of what that's going to look like when kids are out at the bus stop, when parents and families are going to and from work, and there's traffic, and there's just a normal lifestyle?
Thank you. Hi. Hello. Lisa Peckler, 3 Timberleaf Lane. My husband and I have lived in Riverwood since 1999. This is an abomination. I am embarrassed by the board. I am embarrassed and disappointed that the board would allow this conversation to progress as far as it has. And I do live in Beverly Hills, and I can guarantee you this kind of conversation would never occur because they protect fiercely and vigorously the ethos of their community. Now, ours is different, obviously, for totally different reasons. But let me tell you something else. My husband and I have done many additions and construction to our home, and every light bulb, every fixture, every plant, every tree, every minuscule of gravel that's placed is so thoroughly scrutinized by the village. Yeah. Okay. And I take umbrage to that, and we are highly insulted by that. And the fact that this abomination with fake brick and fake wood and driveways that will only line the pockets of Lexington homes has not been scrubbed more vigorously, shame on you.
Hi, my name is Arkady Nivets. Arkady Nivets. I'll spell for you later. I'll send you personal email. So far we heard a lot of voices and opinions. Plus we have this poll which 1,000 people signed petition, 2,000 people. I'm sure it will be more than that. So we know what the damage we will have. I would like to hear from you what the benefit we would have. What's the reason, like previous speaker said, why we even having this conversation? We shouldn't even get to this point, I repeat. So what's the benefit? We'll get what, 1 million, 3 million? How much money we want to, if you need to, if you don't have money, I mean board, I don't talk anybody personally, I don't want to offend them. If you don't have money, we'll bring you money, okay? You need $100 from each, 500, if this is about money. I didn't hear any good reason why we should even go through this. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board at this time? Okay, we're going to close the, oh, sorry, sir.
Wasn't planning on speaking tonight. Noel Bryan, Noel Bryan. We moved to Riverwoods about 10 months ago. Took us forever to find a home up here, but we loved it. And I'm speaking not only as a resident, but I'm an architect, been practicing for 30 years. Those renderings we saw, that's the view the residents see. We drive by, we see the ends of the building. We see the backs of the buildings. You're going to see the lighting penetrating the trees. Architects do renderings to sell. Okay, sell the client, sell the board. Those are not actual accurate renderings of what it's going to look like. So I appreciate the lady that talked about show us some actual renderings, but this does not belong in Riverwoods. This is not why we moved to Riverwoods. You're going to have tons of cars. Those aren't seen in the renderings. You're going to have light penetration. That's not seen in the renderings. When we drive by, we're going to see the butts of the buildings, not the front sides. So if we're really going to consider this, get some accurate information. What we're seeing is not what we're actually going to get. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I understand that council representing Federal Life is present. So before we start, please, respectful. Thank you, sir. Please
Thank you, Mayor.
identify yourself. And
I can give it to you, yes. Hi, my name is Nick Standiford. I'm a real estate attorney for Federal Life. We're the property owner. This property's been difficult to sell, and it's been office space for 40 years since Federal Life has owned it. And there's a reason that they want to sell the property is because it no longer fits their needs. And they've been under contract, I think now twice, to try to sell this property. And they found a buyer in Lexington who has been through iteration upon iteration upon iteration of plans for this site. They've, as you've seen on the village's website, I don't know if any village has been more transparent about the process. It's all on the website. There's a banner at the top talking about the Lexington project. Everyone knows what this project is. Lexington has made efforts to try to make the best project possible for the village, for the county, for the neighbors. And speaking on behalf of Federal Life, we support this project. And we know that some people aren't happy.
okay, please, just a little respect, please.
But ultimately, as Mr. Frank will come up here and say that the project is about a lot more than that. And we've had a hard time finding a buyer for this property. And this property, and I think the fact that Lexington Homes is so interested in this property shows that this is a really good use for this property.
All right, we need to be civil, please.
It's very close to a commercial part of town. And it's going to bring a lot of benefits to the community as a whole. So on behalf of the property owner, who's been a good corporate citizen for the last 40 years, we ask for your support of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board on this topic?
Right, I'm a little unstable. All right. My name is Marshall Dickler. I live at 1334 Woodland Lane in Riverwoods. We've lived there for 18 years now. We built our forever home there. It's not near the project. I actually was asked to represent Meadow Lake. And actually, for lots of personal reasons, and because I shouldn't even be here tonight, because I have a brief due in that has to be filed before midnight, and I have to go home and work on it. I did not agree to represent them. They have another attorney here, but I did give them a lot of direction about the project. I am an attorney, a practicing attorney. My offices are in Arlington Heights and in downtown Chicago. We're a small firm, and my area of specialty is representing condominium and homeowners associations, including a great many associations that were built by Lexington Homes. Even went on an interview just last week for one more association in Arlington Heights. There's a Lexington Homes development, a lot different than the one that's been proposed. Now, I haven't looked at everything that's on the drawings, but I have looked at a little bit. And I think I want to start by saying, at least in my opinion, based upon my understanding of the law, and I said, I've been doing condominium and homeowners association work, both developer work and representing associations, primarily representing associations, and in many cases litigating against the developers for over 40 years. It's the primary area of practice that I've been engaged in, although I have other businesses. I also own shopping centers, and I pretty much eyeball and manage them. So I could talk about how a shopping center owner would feel about a road that goes into its property. And the answer is it would not be happy. It would never allow it. It just wouldn't. And you're not going to have the road going in with the developer, with the owner of those properties agreeing to it and comfortable with it. So you ought to recognize that as a starting point. It won't happen. I had that one request once. I gave it. I would never do it again, and I would never do it for another client I represent that owns shopping centers. It's nothing but a problem. You will have barriers across that road in no time flat, and you'll not be able to stop the shopping center owners from putting it up. They don't want that traffic. It's not conducive to operating the shopping center. And as an owner, I can tell you that unequivocally. So I can speak from personal knowledge and from actual operation. You've had here an attorney that just spoke, and that is not a consideration.
Sorry, sir. Can you wrap up, please?
I'm sorry?
Time's up.
Okay, that is not a consideration at all in your process.
Thank you very much.
My name is Matthew Eisenstein, 5 Meadow Lane in Meadow Lake. I heard the representative for the life insurance company say, this is a good area to place something that's unattractive because it's near other unattractive things. I feel like I'm having an argument with my own village that I've had with Buffalo Grove. Meadow Lake is on the edge of the village, and I feel like you're stuffing all sorts of unpleasant, unattractive things on the edge of the village because it's far away from where you are. And you've put in the storage building that looks like a prison without any modifications to it to make it more attractive. You put in the gas station that's unattractive. You put in the shops of Riverwoods that's unattractive and unmanaged. I don't know why you need to stuff another unattractive, ugly project into our area to make it more unpleasant to be on the edge of Riverwoods and feel once again like we're some sort of stepchild of this village. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jay Surrender. I live in Meadow Lake. I moved into Meadow Lake in 2020. I have 3 young boys, 9, 8, and 3 now. And one of them asked me, since we've been living there for about 3 years, Dad, can I take this home when I'm grown up? Can I live here? And my wife and I, we drive into Riverwoods, we drive into Meadow Lake every day with a smile on our faces. And we hope that our kids are excited to stay in this neighborhood and that they're excited to take over this home when we're no longer here. And they're excited to be a part of Riverwoods long after we're gone. We're the next generation. We're preparing Riverwoods for the next generation. You guys are trustees. The core word in that is trust. We place our trust in you that we moved here for a reason, and that reason will be around for our children and our grandchildren. And we hope that you understand that the voices that you're hearing today are not just people that don't want to see lights. They're not just people that are elitist or want things to be a certain way. We're not opposed to change, but we're for what Riverwoods stood for when we first moved here. And we want Riverwoods to stand for those same things when we're long gone and our children take over. And that's the voice I think that's most important today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Matt Belagamba, 23 Chicory Lane. Hello. I 100% oppose this project by Lexington. I'm a Meadow Lake resident. However, I am not, it could be even in my, where I live, be seen as like an out of sight, out of mind project. However, I stand in strong solidarity with my direct neighbors in Meadow Lake who will drastically be affected by the light, by the look, by the height, very negatively. Most, and very possibly by the people that live there who probably are not going to try to do anything in harmful way per se, but just because they're going to be very crowded on that parcel if we did, as I really liked how the architect showed, and the other woman who's shared, Judy, from our community, the renderings aren't showing us what we're really going to see. It's their perspective of beauty, not, showing some of that crowdedness, cars, other unfortunate things that are going to come out of it, in my opinion. There are, since I've been here about 10 years, I've been able to jog and through the whole areas, trails otherwise, and streets. In Buffalo Grove, in Lincolnshire, there are apartment complexes, the one by Regal that recently was built in my time. The apartment buildings in Buffalo Grove, people have more space in all these. The ones in Deerfield, right on the other side by the expressway. Every one of those apartment complexes has a lot more space, and those people can move around there, and they love it. They walk around. These people are just going to be stuck in a cage on that property. It's a really bad project, in my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else that wishes to speak?
Christina Overbuch, 7 Chicory Lane. We as a family are all as well are opposed of this project. This project does not fit the village. It does not fit the residents or benefit the residents, neither the village. As residents, we did move here. I'm a mom of 3 kids, and we moved here several years ago for the nature, for the beauty of having that nature and be surrounded by it. This particular development that is 3-story high, that has been pronounced to us as it's going to be mostly occupied by elderly people. And there will be mostly only 5 kids living in that area. And you, as an attorney of Lexington, have very happily told me that this does not belong to our school district, which we were aware of. Thank you. And as a village, so we're only going to be getting 25% of the property taxes that are going there. 25%, because Aptekissic and Stevenson High School takes away 75% of the tax bill. So what are we benefiting? So we're bringing an overly density project that looks extremely ugly. It has no nature surrounding, and it brings a lot of traffic into the area. Why would we approve this? Why, as a village, we need this? They had many opportunities because this project been going for more than 9 months. Over 9 months, they've been hearing us as residents anytime we were given an opportunity to speak. Not a single thing was addressed in a way of making this project work for our village. I do not see that Lexington should belong here. I do not see them making any changes other than their own profits. Federal Life attorney, I mean, as any seller, who doesn't want to sell if you're putting the property on the market? So his literally words are worthless. I do not see a single value in anything that he brought over here tonight and why we even gave him an opportunity to speak. He does not live in our village. Do you live in our village?
I live in Lake Forest.
So next door.
Okay, excuse me.
Thank you so much.
All right.
And I really hope that our village will actually listen to the residents, will protect us as they were meant to be, and not oppose this project to go on our land over here. Regardless of what Federal Life wants to sell or doesn't want to sell, that's their problem to handle. Maybe they need to do better research to find a reputable builder who actually values the standards of the village and what we like about here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no one else, we're going to move the agenda forward. We have no new business this evening. Old business. It's listed as consideration of the Lexington Homes zoning application for the development of the Federal Life property. I would remind the board that in front of us is a petition. The petition is a request for 2 actions. The first is a rezoning or remapping of the property to the 1R district and a special use permitting multiple family residential use. The request for approval of the special use cannot proceed without approval of the zoning of the property. So with that, I'll open it up to the discussion by the board. If the board has any questions, wishes to move forward. Trustee Smith?
Thank you, Bruce. I just had a question. At one point, someone said, and I don't remember who, is that the zoning is not correct is ineligible for 1R. Is that a correct assessment?
I think the interpretation was that the tract wasn't referring to just Meadow Lake, but any contiguous tract. The total tract had to be 50 acres. So in my opinion, you can add to the adjoining 1R district and expand it. Basically, Meadow Lake is 50, so this would be expanding the 1R tract above the 50 acre minimum.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Hollander?
Be a little bit patient with me. First, I do want to say that this has been a long, complicated process, a lot of consternation among the village and the residents. But I want to thank the residents for being as vocal and as clear about what they objected to and what the concerns are. Whether we approve the project or not, I think that the changes that were made to address some of those concerns were directly based on what the residents were looking to have changed that they didn't like. Not fully, but there were changes made. And I think it was helpful. The second part is that we wear a couple hats sitting here. One is to represent the residents. You voted us in. And your concerns are concerns that we are supposed to take into consideration in whatever we do. But we also wear another hat in representing what's best for the village. And sometimes those two things are in conflict. Sometimes they are not. For example, with the Baxter Bridge project, both the residents mainly of Thorngate and the village of Riverwoods were in agreement that this was not something we wanted to be adjacent to our village. and we're moving forward on that. Sometimes the residents want something that the village doesn't. I'll give an example, and that is the path along Deerfield Road, to be simple. Most of the residents wanted that path repaired. I think from the village perspective, it was going to be only temporary for 2 years, and we're spending a chunk of money for something that was going to be here for a very short period of time. But in this case, the residents' concerns, I think, made sense and overrided what the village might have wanted to do with their money. In this case, I think we have a similar conflict. From the village's perspective, a few things should be stated. One is when Federal Life came to us, I don't know, a year and a half ago, they said, we want to sell the property. What is it you would like to see there? And we responded, we thought the best use of the property was townhomes. We recognized that on the east side of the property, that there's going to be 4.5 lanes of traffic, 4 lanes plus a merge lane. On the west side of the property, there's 7 lanes of traffic. Across the street, a storage facility and a gas station. And on the west side, what I would consider potentially failing shopping center. This was never going to be a property which was conducive for single family homes or the types of properties that were in the rest of the village. It's a transitional property. And I think when we look at this, we have to look at the location of where it is. If someone wanted to buy 3 properties where I live and wanted to put up multifamily housing, the zoning would never permit it and it wouldn't be appropriate for our area. But this particular property is adjacent to commercial properties as well as residential, transitional. So what do you do with this? There's a limited choice that's in front of us. We either deny it, which will probably end up being a vacant property. Federal Life has had difficulty. I don't see anything retail going in there in today's market environment. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. We're not going to be putting in 6- and 7-story high apartments. And we're not going to be putting in any type of single family homes. So it leaves us with limited choice to avoid a vacant property in Riverwoods. We don't want to have something that's sitting there that's not usable. Federal Life has been, just as we all are, a good corporate citizen. They've been here for 40 years, I think, and I think we have to respect the choice that they have in wanting to sell it. One of the concerns that I've heard from the residents is that this was a private sale. No one knew about it. But if we sell our homes, we don't tell everybody around us that we're selling them, and we don't ask them who we can sell it to.
That's not true.
Order, trustee is speaking.
No, I think that's up to the property owner to decide how they want to sell their property. And they did come to us and we did give them an answer. The concerns that I think have been probably reduced to density and parking, although I will hit upon a few others, are significant and haven't been fully resolved. Some of the other ones, and I'll get back to it, have been the idea of being worried about people going into the ponds or lakes. And folks from this project may go in there. I'm not a lawyer, but it seems to me that the people who own a swimming pool or a pond are responsible for maintaining its safety. I don't think it's the responsibility of Federal Life or it's whoever they sell it to protect those ponds from their residents. I think the fence is beneficial. I agree, you can probably step over it. As it relates to the property itself, we have rules and ordinances that we have to follow as a village. From my understanding, the way the project is being proposed, it meets all the ordinances on light and height, traffic, water. It meets those ordinances. They're there for a reason. We aren't making any exceptions to it. It's hard to say no to something that they already followed the rules. As to parking, I agree, there's limited parking. We have limited parking all over Riverwoods. If you have a dinner party or graduation or something around our homes, most of us can't park in the streets. There are areas where you can in Riverwoods, but most of Riverwoods you can't. And what do we have to do? We have to go to our neighbors and say, can we have someone park in your driveway for a couple of hours while we have whatever event we're having? This place has over 4 spaces per unit. There's 2 in the garage and 2 outside. Granted, it's limited. When I moved into my home, I had both well water and I had a septic tank. I recognized that I wanted neither of those, but I wanted the home and was willing to accept the compromise and having those 2 items that I wasn't used to. I think people who move into this project, assuming it goes forward, are going to look at the parking and say, are we willing to accept a more limited parking than we might want otherwise? I'm not so certain the village can determine how many parking spaces are required for any particular home. And I wouldn't expect us to do that for Lexington either. As far as density goes, it's probably the problem with multifamily housing. One of the solutions, and I talked to one of our trustees about it, is if you want a lower density, take out one of the buildings, get rid of it, and put in a parking lot. You solve both problems. You now have a large parking lot. You've reduced the density by maybe 15%, but I don't think it changes the look of the project. In fact, it probably makes it worse. You have more impermeable surface, and it still looks the same. Density is a funny number. If someone wanted to do this in Meadow Lake, they could. Meadow Lake chose not to do it. It's the same zoning that Meadow Lake has. We have had in Riverwoods, single-family homes, except for 2 major projects. One was Thorngate, which for a number of years, the village fought and lost because they didn't want to have houses on small lots. It's here. I don't think today anybody looks at it as being an eyesore or a problem, but it was when they wanted to build it. The other one is Meadow Lake. It doesn't have 2-acre lots. It was also zoned for this use. Unfortunately, Riverwoods only has, to my knowledge, inside Riverwoods zoning, 2 properties that this would apply to. One is Walters Kluwer, which is going to be coming up to us in the next several months and will be another difficult subject to talk about because I don't see single-family homes there. I can be wrong. This is just a personal opinion. My guess is this is going to be multifamily homes of some variety, maybe a mixture. And the only other property in the village is Federal Life. That's it. This is not going to be an example of what we're going to see anywhere else in Riverwoods. It's not going to be permitted. But we have a transitional piece of land here that trying to represent the village, we have to think about what we're going to do with it. From a village standpoint, and I'm wearing my village hat now, not the residents' hat, because I understand all of your concerns. From a village standpoint, this is important for a number of reasons, which I don't think we can ignore. One, it's a unique property. It is not going to be duplicated anywhere else. 2, it's between a commercial and residential area needing some type of transitional project to go there. Maybe you can think of something else in multifamily. I can't, but maybe someone can. Third, we have a failing shopping center. And we have talked to the person who owns the shopping center, and in disagreement with, I don't know who it was, I think an attorney said that he won't allow it. I'm pretty sure that after our discussions for the last couple of years with the property owner, that they're going to allow an entrance into the Colonial Court. Mainly because when Deerfield Road gets built, they aren't going to have access. It's right in, right out only. You're not going to be able to go east out of the shopping center on Deerfield Road. And you're not going to be able to go into it from the west. There's no access. It's very limited access. So one of the things for the village has to be concerned about is how do we make this viable? And one of the ways we were going to do it was to put a road in from Deerfield Road directly into the shopping center. If this project doesn't go through, we won't have a road. Now that may not be a concern for the residents, but it's a concern for the village. It's a different way of looking at it. In addition, if we don't do the project and change the retention ponds the way our village arborists would like with 4-to-1 ratios and certain types of grass and foliage that I'm not an expert in, but apparently will look nice and will be viable. The county then will take the retention pond and do what they want with it. It will not be like we want it because we won't have any ability to control that. I am of mixed minds about this personally, because I see that if we don't do it, potentially we are leaving ourselves open for legal concerns because they're asking for the same type of zoning that's adjacent to them. It's preventing the owner from selling their property and doing something with it. It's not a major concern of mine, but it's something that at least as trustees, I think we have to keep in mind. I also don't see another use for it. I can't imagine what else that property is going to be able to use for that's going to be successful. And we do know that if it's a vacant land, that's not something we want. So I'm trying to present at least my way of approaching it. So even though you may not agree with my vote, you can understand from where I'm coming. And I'm trying to look at it from the village's standpoint, and our responsibility that way is different from the residents. And I do have 3 questions for the attorney that presented their concerns. And I don't know if we'll be able to answer it, but I wanted to know, he differentiated the zoning from Meadow Lake from this one. He said they weren't the same. I thought that it was the same zoning. Is that correct, Bruce?
The request is to rezone to the 1R district. Meadow Lake is in the 1R district.
Okay.
That's what you meant.
So I don't agree with what the attorney said. The attorney also was brought the idea with the lakes and the fence, and I already addressed that. I may have something to say later, but
Okay.
that's it for the moment.
Any other trustees wishing to make comments? Trustee Jamerson?
Sure, I'll jump in. First of all, in regards to the fence, that's not going to stop anybody. No offense taken, but and I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just saying that you know, a small kid is going to want to climb over that fence, and that's the whole object. It needs to be a solid fence of some kind. So that's that. I've been on record since the beginning of this project saying that since it came to the village, that I believe that there's a place in Riverwoods for multifamily housing. And I still believe there's a place in Riverwoods for multifamily housing. I have a lot of concerns. I voiced a lot of concerns at the last meeting, which many were answered, not necessarily to my satisfaction. But I also believe that the board here, we are volunteers. And we spend our time trying to do what's best for the village and the residents. And since this project has come to the village, I have been called a liar. This board has been called liars, and we've been lambasted. And even tonight, people made comments that were totally inappropriate. So I want you all to know that that doesn't help anybody's case. And don't laugh at me. I heard that. I do think that Henry does have some good points. And thank you for being as articulate as you were. I don't think that this project is necessarily the end of the line for this piece of property. If it doesn't happen, there will be some other, and I know the attorney said they've been having a hard time trying to market this piece of property and actually get a. Would you please let me talk? I let you all talk for almost an hour. So I would appreciate it if you wouldn't make comments while I am talking, or any of the other trustees up here, or the mayor, or the village attorney, or anyone that's part of this village staff. I wasn't talking to you. It came from that direction. I don't care who it was.
Let's continue. Let's continue.
Thank you for helping me to lose track of where I was. Anyways, I don't think that this is the end all be all for this piece of property. I think that the owner may end up having to take a lesser amount of money for the piece of property to develop something different. I do think that the access road to the shopping center is going to be the lifesaver, if there is a possibility of saving the life for that shopping center once Deerfield Road gets widened and a median is put up that you cannot cross on Deerfield Road. It's been in the village's thought process for years before this project came to be. I personally think that that the project is too bulky. And that's in my mind, there's a difference between bulk and density. You all may think that's the same thing, but if these were 2-story buildings and there were maybe less units, I would be more comfortable with the project. I still have issues with the parking. I have issues with the fire department access because I still don't believe they're going to be able to fight fires properly. And there has been misinformation put out from many sides of this issue. And I think that makes it more difficult for us to do our job as trustees. I guess my only comment tonight on what I did see, I don't think there's a whole lot of difference between these pictures. And I'm no offense to anybody, but I had to tear them apart and hold them up to actually see the difference. And there are differences. They're very minor. So anyways, that's all I have to say, I think, for now. I'll retain the ability to reply again if I need to.
Any other trustee wish to make comments at this point or ask questions? Trustee Clayton?
I have a statement that I wanted to go through, so I hope you'll bear with me. We've gone through a due process to protect the property rights of the seller and to try to, thank you, to try to protect the rights of the residents here in Riverwoods. We've had Plan Commission and Board of Trustee testimony. We've had a Plan Commission report. We've had a supplemental Plan Commission report like the one on affordable housing by Chairman Brightcoff. We've had public input at the Plan Commission meetings and Board of Trustee meetings. We've had letters, emails, and meetings with various citizen groups. And now we've had some legal input as well. And my attempt at this point was to try to outline and consider all the pros and cons of all the different arguments that I've heard. And comments on some of the main threads of the comments from the residents. I think that issues, in my opinion, issues with the buffer, shielding, and fence can be, if they haven't already, be addressed by design changes. I think trespassing concerns are somewhat addressed by the design changes, but it is not clear to me why residents of multifamily housing would be more prone to trespassing or disturbing the peace for that matter than single-family homeowners. The same goes for safety and liability concerns about the ponds. The precedent issue, where will future projects go? Each project is considered individually in the context of the site with the limited possibilities that we have. So I don't believe any precedent is being set. In terms of property values, it is not at all clear to me how a vibrant multifamily neighborhood and a potentially rejuvenated shopping center are going to lower property values as compared to a derelict office building and a failing commercial area with limited access. Generally speaking, I am in favor of bringing the right multifamily housing to Riverwoods. I think design, cultural, and social economic diversity actually enriches our community. Despite statements to the contrary, I am particularly troubled by the undercurrent in the let Riverwoods be Riverwoods or preserve Riverwoods character statements. In my mind, what defines Riverwoods brand has a lot less to do with lot size, resident background, or income level, or single family versus multifamily, and a lot more to do with the values of caring for the life around us. Riverwoods character is the community's commitment to protecting and valuing our shared natural resources as privately stewarded by the 1,400 property owners. The right design would engage new residents into this Riverwoods character. However, having said all this, this is not the right project design for 3 reasons. Density, architecture consistent with the natural surroundings, not barracks, and sustainability. And I find that under the case law, as I understand it, the requested zoning is incompatible with the existing use and zoning of nearby properties. And I would argue that the rezoning coupled with the special use request for this particular multifamily project is at a density that is not compatible with single family properties lying immediately to the north and to the south. I do not want to trade off adequate green space for adequate parking and vice versa. I do not want something that will look like barren barracks for at least 5 to 10 years. And I've gone around and looked at other Lexington developments, and I was particularly struck by the one on Techney just east of Saunders and Northbrook. I don't want to characterize what those look like, but they reminded me a lot of the internment camps on the West Coast during World War II. I do not want something that provides no nature play areas for families. I do not want something with no irrigation or continued developer involvement in the landscape and naturalized areas. Experience shows that this doesn't seem to work in Riverwoods, and the HOA responsibility doesn't give me comfort for a number of reasons. While the access road could be an economic asset deserving strong consideration, it does not offset the other concerns. I would want to make this a model ecological supportive development consistent with Riverwoods being a model community. The village can offer up tip assistance to help make this happen. I think that the property has been continuously occupied since its construction, and pending the petitioner's application for rezoning, the property has only been limitedly actively marketed. The petitioner has not demonstrated that other uses of the existing building cannot be found. And last, the petitioners have not presented evidence that the property cannot be used under the existing zoning. Corporate, general, medical, business, professional, or governmental offices are all allowed uses. So I am a no vote against the zoning.
There anyone else, any of the other trustees wish to speak? Trustee, I think Trustee Smith and then Trustee Dickon, please. Oh, or they can flip a coin.
I will not repeat what's been said by the other trustees, but the way I see this, it has limited benefit to the village of Riverwoods. The taxes seem inconsequential from a property tax perspective. The access road to a dying shopping center may has value, maybe not. The other piece of that is, will the shopping center owner actually allow us to use it or to do that? That seems to be a big question mark to me. So those are the kind of 2 pros, or maybe at least not negatives. But the other side of that is I feel like it's less green than we'd like it to be, protecting woodlands, protecting nature, protecting animals. I don't know that a fence helps us do any of those things. I would prefer it to be less dense. I'm like Michael, I'm not against multifamily housing, but I'm not sure that this is the right amount of multifamily housing on this location, especially recognizing the limited acreage that is available. It's going to be more traffic. I think the congestion is going to be bad. I don't think there's enough parking. the other concern, which somebody said earlier, was it doesn't feel like this could possibly improve, floodplain and water issues. And then ultimately, and here's part of the core for me, it doesn't align with the comprehensive plan that was written and approved in 2019. I've got a few kind of comments on each of these areas. Comprehensive plan, privacy, and the key tenets from my perspective, privacy and independence, low density community. We can talk about what's the right number of low density. I'm not saying it has to be one family per acre, but I'm not sure that this is what the intent was. And then I think the other key component of comprehensive plan was enhance and protect the woodland character. In terms of the density, how much less could it be? I asked that question a month ago, didn't get kind of a straight answer, which is okay, I get it. But I think it was Rick's perspective, could it be two-story housing? Could it be, instead of 54 units, could it be 18, 9, 10, 24, whatever the number is? And then I think as we talked about parking, so I won't belabor that. It is interesting, I think, about the fire protection district review. I do not think we can proceed with a yay vote until that is received. I worry a lot about, and I've mentioned to some of my fellow trustees and some residents, I'm just concerned about lighting and the intrusion of that onto the properties that exist around it. Because, somebody said it, and actually I was thinking it, was, an office building tends to work maybe 7 to 7. Let's just say, a residential housing will be 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. midnight. So I just think it'll be a different environment, not necessarily a bad environment, but it will be different. Just a couple other comments. I think if we're the affordable housing, which is also part of our comprehensive plan, kind of the tenets of, at least the tenets of what we're supposed to do via state regulation. I'm against if we're going to do it, I want to make sure that we get the entire 15% into the what's code or what's proposed. The in lieu of just doesn't quite honestly feel right to me. I'm worried about Deerfield Road. We talked a little bit about traffic tonight and other times. I think the widening of Deerfield Road, it'll be harder to get out. It's already kind of a hard intersection to get out. I was trying to leave at like noon one day from the Meadow Lake area, and it took me a while to get across the street. So once again, I worry about that. And then ultimately, which really kind of ties back to my last comments about the comprehensive plan, worried about tree protection. The trees that they've described wouldn't be fully grown for 10 years, which I think is what we heard on the last meeting. So I think I'm just worried about that. It doesn't feel like it will look like Riverwoods to me. Not that everything has to look cookie cutter. That's not clearly Riverwoods, but I do feel like it should be more green. And I'd also like to see less impervious space being used. So you could probably tell where I'm going with that, but I'll wait for the vote.
Thank you. Thank you. Trustee Dickon, please. And then Trustee Eastman. Thank you.
From the beginning of this dialogue, I have not been opposed to multifamily housing, but I'm not convinced that the Federal Life property is the right place for multifamily housing. I continue to have issues with population density, with parking, with traffic, with the impact on our schools and our police department. I'm not convinced by the proposed demographics that have been presented. I do not think that seniors and empty nesters are going to move into 3-story buildings. I think those demographics could be easily verified. There's data companies such as Dun & Bradstreet from whom you could buy data that will say who lives in this high school district that lives in townhomes or in multifamily houses. Is it seniors or is it mostly folks who are trying to get into the school district? In speaking with the Meadow Lake residents, I have expressed that personally, as a resident, I don't support this development, but I think I've made it clear that I didn't want for that to be an indication of my vote. I do think that there are other possible uses for the Federal life property, such as maybe a community center or a park district. You know, we're, I think, probably one of the fewest villages that don't have a park district, and perhaps this might not be a bad place for it. I also wanted to say that I am impressed by how the residents have organized. I find it admirable. I think that 99% of the folks who have addressed us have done so in a very respectful manner. I received many emails and calls, and I apologize for not having responded to all of them, but I've tried to respond to many. I have heard you, and I really hope that my vote will represent what the residents actually really want. And I do not support this development.
All right, Trustee Eastman, please.
Thanks, Chris.
Yes.
From its founding in 1959, Riverwoods has been a community that has been viewed as a natural oasis amid suburbia, successfully blending low-density living with strict woodland protections for a combination that is truly unique in Chicago's northern suburbs. I applaud the developer Lexington Homes for going through a lengthy process to try and reconcile their vision for Riverwoods Reserve with the village's upcoming infrastructure improvement projects, and for including plans for accommodating affordable housing options within the development. While this is a difficult decision to make, I cannot vote for approval of this project, and two factors weigh heavily in my decision. I believe that the Federal Life site is simply too small to accommodate the large number of units envisioned in a way that would not encroach impermissibly on the livability of residents located in surrounding existing subdivisions like Meadow Lake. I also remain concerned that the Riverwoods Reserve development would potentially cause substantial injury to the value of other property in the neighborhood where it would be located, which I believe was one of the LaSalle factors. Additional considerations impacting my vote include the possibility of better situated residential development at the current Walters Kluwer site near Lake Cook Road, and the potential Baxter's headquarters redevelopment, which may further negatively impact the environmental character of our village. I realize that our village must adapt to changing times and demographics, and I am not opposed to exploring other more appropriate, less dense residential uses for the Federal Life site in the near future, including housing specifically focused on seniors. Thank you.
Okay. Does the board? Does the board have any other comments or questions? Okay, is the board of a mind to act this evening?
Yes, I'd like to act this evening.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion that we deny the request.
Second.
Do I need to be any more specific? Sorry, do I need to be any more specific than that?
No.
Okay.
okay, as part of discussion, would you like to make a comment? It's the discussion on the motion to deny.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I appreciate all the comments that we heard tonight from all of you, most notably also from the attorney for the neighbors and from the neighbors. As some of you know, our client, Nate Weinsma, is out of the country. He's returning tomorrow, and he would like to hear everything that was heard tonight and be given an opportunity to respond. I understand there seems to be overwhelming lack of support for the project, but we heard a lot, not just from you, but from the attorney for the objectives. We heard reference to LaSalle factors that I was prepared to respond to tonight, but it didn't have that opportunity to do so. So, I would ask that any kind of motion or vote be taken up at your next meeting in July.
Okay, I don't think we can do that.
No, I'm sorry, we can't do that. What I would like to say is I want to applaud our trustees and our plan commission for going through this process. It was lengthy. There were lots of comments, some good, some more disrespectful than others. And I really think that you can tell that each member of this board has done a lot of thinking about this and really a lot of soul searching. I know the residents have been very active, and that's been important, of course. It's kind of nice to see the boardroom full. And typically we only see Catherine and Russ Romanelli. You're all welcome to come back. But at this point, again, I want to applaud the board. Our consultants who have been just very reliable and have provided us with a great deal of information. You can tell that that was all taken into account by the comments that were made by this board. So without further comment, unless you have a
I just want to
comment.
make one comment.
Okay, yeah, board is happy.
I do think that Lexington Homes was very responsive to the requests that were made to the best of their ability. So I do appreciate that. And I just want to go on record as saying that. But
I have one clarification to ask those who made the motion and seconded it. A number of the trustees gave their reasons, which could take as findings of fact as to why this project did not meet the standards for rezoning. I wrote them down as you were talking. Does the motion incorporate those rationales for rejecting the zoning?
yes.
Who seconded the motion?
I did. Oh, no,
Well, I don't
you
know.
did.
Well, I think I did that initially.
Who seconded the motion, clerk?
The clerk,
First time.
I have to review the tape.
I think it was
Trustee Smith.
Trustee Smith.
Trustee Smith. Okay.
I heard him first.
Well, that's just
All
because
right.
I'm closer to you.
And as,
Could be.
and we will be taking vote by seniority. So if the clerk could please call the roll on this one. Thank you.
Jamerson,
In support of the motion, you would say yes to the motion. The motion is to deny.
Aye.
trustee Hollander, trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickin,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Smith.
Aye.
The motion passes. The application is denied. There being no reason to go into executive session, the date and the time for our next meeting, board, the scheduled time would be July 4th. I've canceled that. Does the board wish to reschedule, or can we go to July 18th?
18th.
July 18. The next regular meeting, excuse me, the next regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Riverwoods is July 18th at 7:30 PM. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you.